I said the same thing for 2 years. It's going to happen. The BRICS will back their currency with a common, or it will be a common settlement currency to begin with. It doesn't need to be a reserve currency because of everything in terms of settlement, like for energy and all of the BRICS countries that are now OPEC countries, in particular, adding Iran and UAE and Saudi Arabia on top of Russia. You're talking the majority of oil production in the world is controlled by the BRICS. So at some point, they are going to peg their currency to something. But if you see, in terms of it being a reserve currency or a settlement currency, if all of energy is settled in another currency or in other currencies, over time, the lack of settlement in the dollar will erode tremendously the reserve status. But here, all of a sudden, we see that they just issued their first ever BRICS bonds. Not a tremendous amount, 130, 40 billion. I don't remember the exact amount. The point is that they just issued BRICS bonds only to be purchased by other BRICS currencies. You can't purchase them with US dollars. And they're called like the Maharaja bonds or something to that extent. But these are BRICS bonds. The point of it is that, and I am very fond of the term logarithmic decay, which is kind of like the Niagara Falls, little by little by little by little by little, then bang, all at once. Well, that's what we've seen happening largely for the last few years, and especially since August. But if we look at what didn't happen at that meeting, yes, they did not say that we are going to issue at this meeting a common settlement currency. But what they did say is that, well, in the meantime, we're going to task all of our financial ministers to all of these countries to go back to the drawing board and come back to us at the meeting here in Russia in 2024 in October and present your findings. In the meantime, you're going to trade in local currencies, all of these countries, and you're beginning to see that. We just saw United Arab Emirates do a massive deal, first one ever with, I believe, with China, using the project Bridge, as in money, which is it's a digital platform that allows these countries to trade their own central bank digital currencies amongst one another, sidestepping the SWIFT system. But if you're using your own local currency to buy energy instead of the dollar, which it always was since 1974, when we struck the deal with Saudi Arabia, we protect you and therefore you value oil in dollars globally. That's created a synthetic demand for the dollar for the last 50 years, as every country in the world has had to stockpile them to buy oil. Well, now if all of these countries start trading in local currencies, sidestepping the SWIFT system, which is the tool of the sanctions, you have a system that is little by little by little progressing away from the settlement status of the US dollar, which is a very big deal. And
yeah, it's a huge deal.
Yeah, and although the things didn't materialize, look, they said come back in October and present your findings. But in the meantime, there's 200 meetings between now and October in Russia, each one of them related to the BRICS. They're all BRICS meetings before the big one. And we're going to see all sorts of developments happen between now and next October, let alone a month later, you have maybe the most important election in the history of this country. So we will begin to see things become much clearer. But I will tell you that it is my 100% belief that you will see a commodity-backed currency eventually that will, and what is gold? Oh yeah, it's the only other tier one asset on the planet. Who's been buying it all? Oh yeah, the central banks. Who produces more of it? Oh yeah, that'd be China and Russia and India. They produce more, they accumulate more. They don't export any, and they import more. And so these are the countries who understand the significance, not just of gold and silver, where a country like India has imported 400 million ounces of silver in the last 2 years. That's more than twice as much almost as on COMEX market, but they're doing it with all the world's commodities. And in trading to accumulate these commodities, if being bought from countries that are non-Western, many of them are trading in their local currencies. Even our allies, like Macron from France, he just did a massive liquid natural gas deal with United Arab Emirates and paid in yuan. So when we talk about the erosion of the settlement value of the dollar, the de-dollarization, it is little by little by little by little, then bang, all at once, not until we have mass adoption. But what have we learned since October? Oh yeah, 35 more countries have formally applied to the BRICS. 35 more with another 20 plus. You're talking, when this is all said and done, if you add the BRICS, the Belt Road Initiative, the countries that comprise it, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and the Eurasian Economic Union, You're talking the majority of human population, the majority of global GDP, much stronger military, might two of the three largest nuclear arsenals on the planet. You're talking the majority of the world's commodities. And if you look at the countries, if you were to look at a map of the Middle East and you put in there Iran, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, all of these, they have the Red Sea covered, they have the Straits of Hormuz covered, all of the shipping lanes, these strategic shipping lanes, and the north-south corridor that Russia just finished building, which connects Iran with India, and all of the, the abilities to sidestep traditional shipping lanes that the U.S. Navy patrols. All of these things, the reason it didn't come out in August is because, like cryptocurrency people will talk about mass adoption. Well, it's one thing to have 5 countries in BRICS, and then they added 5 more as 10. And that's big and that's significant. Add another potentially 50 more, and you have enough mass adoption, mass amount of human population. You control the world's commodities. You control many of the shipping lanes. You control the energy production. All of this stuff, little by little by little, and bang, we're not going to take dollars for oil anymore. Why? Because you signed an executive order to go green and you weaponize the dollar against our BRICS brothers and sisters, Russia and Iran. And if we're on the wrong side of you, and we, by the way, believe you're hypocritical. I mean, think about what we've done to Iraq. We invaded them 20 years ago. We're still sanctioning 14 of their banks, and we hold all of their oil revenue 20 years after we invaded them, supposedly in a democratic fashion. They asked us for $1 billion last year. Of the $90 billion that they made the year in 2023 selling oil, no, we said, no, we're not going to give it to you. So what did they do? They just formally applied to BRICS. They're saying they're in the process of kicking coalition forces out of the country. They've made trading in dollars illegal. If you own a business and you trade in dollars, you'll go to jail and they'll take your business. And as of January 1st of this year, all green dollar bills, like $20 bills, $100 bills, there are none left in any of the banks in Iraq. They view us as hypocritical, but the weaponizing of the dollar, where, you can do what you want as the U.S. and you can evade a country under false pretenses. You never found those weapons of mass destruction, occupy their country for 20 years, control their oil revenue, do all of these things, sanction their banks for trading with Iranian banks so they could buy liquid natural gas because they're frying to death in the summer. No, says the U.S. So we say no, but we look at what we've done to Russia, and whether or not you agree with that, it should not be our prerogative to say who can and who can't use the dollar. So by weaponizing the dollar, we've made the entire Southern Hemisphere say, no, I don't trust these guys, especially now that the Speaker of the House and the Biden administration is talking about not just sanctioning and freezing and freezing interest payments on the bonds that they own, like we did with Iran and just gave a bunch back. No, we're going to confiscate
their assets
to fight the war in Ukraine. Now, you cross that line and you'll never come back from it.
Right.
So when you realize we've weaponized the dollar and we've signed an executive order to go green, and all of these countries are joining together who represent the majority of human population and the majority of oil production, you can see the handwriting on the wall. You don't have to be an economist or even very astute to see what's coming. Little by little by little by little. The problem is the media in this country doesn't show us what's really happening. You have to watch people like yourself or myself and find alternative sources of truth and media that show us what's happening. And that's the sad part, is that the majority of people that you call friends your whole life will be run over by this because they don't see it coming. And that's the scary thing. But yeah, what happened in August, big deal. What they did is they set the table for mass adoption, and to do it. If you only get one shot, you got one bullet in your gun, you better wait till you have the kill shot.
Right.
And so to speak, you're not going to shoot if you aren't positive you're going to hit the target. And by issuing that currency, that settlement currency, pegged to commodities last August would have been futile. But to do it when you have the majority of human population and all the GDP and all the energy production, the shipping lanes and mass adoption, safety in numbers, yes. And it may not even happen here in October. But like I said, 200 BRICS meetings between now and October, the one big one. So there will be a lot of information that rears itself over the next several months, and better to be aware of it now than before it all at once happens.